Hey, everybody, it is Tim Gillette, and we're back here for another Tim Gillette show. And yes, we're live. We're actually broadcasting this live on Facebook and YouTube for all those people who want to join in on the conversation. You know, I only interview the coolest people on the planet. Really, I mean, these are cool people, number one, because, all right, they have a personality behind them. Number two, they're doing things that impact the world, not just their world, but the world. Today's guest is no different than that today. I get to meet this guy named Jacob. I know very little about Jacob. This is going to be our first time that we ever talk live on camera. It's one of the best things I love about my show. I get to have a one-on-one live on camera, and then we record it, make a podcast out of it, video, all that fun stuff. And you get to be part of the experience. So let me bring Jacob up here today, and let's have a good old time, find out what he's up to as we get ready to have a fun podcast. Hey, Jacob, how you doing today?
Hey, doing good. Thanks for having me.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name, but you go ahead and tell me what it is.
It's Roig.
Roig?
Yep, like Roy with the G at the end of it.
Roy, I love that. I mean, I love how you can explain it, all right? Mine, I say it's Gillette, like Penn Gillette, only I spell my name with a G. Or Penn or Gillette, it's, sharper, or the best a man can get. But anyway.
That's right.
Hey, if you can't make fun of yourself, who can you make fun of, right?
Age does help us understand that on a really acute level, for sure.
Yeah. It is funnier. I'll be 55 this year, and like as we get older, how much stuff we're like, yeah, it doesn't bother me anymore. You get that way?
Oh man, totally. It's the stuff that used to drive me crazy and stress me out and everything. Now I'm kind of like, it's okay. Let's just let it go and see what happens. Yeah. And you realize the more you get out of the way, the easier it usually happens anyway. So
yeah. I look at the things I used to frustrate me as a kid, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know why I was ever so frustrated about that. Like, just let it go.
Yeah, when you do look back, it is funny, isn't it? Sometimes it's like, that used to bother me. And now people, like even my family, will say, man, you used to get all stressed out at that. Now you don't, it doesn't even bother you. And I'm like, we do get that opportunity if we understand it, man, to make things right and to grow up a little bit.
Well, I mean, I know you're a business coach and mentor like myself, and I'll bet you anything that you probably wished, like I look at my life now and go, where was somebody like me when I was 20 years old? I could have used somebody like me to slap me upside the head a lot.
Yeah. Well, if you're, probably in the same parallel too, that's part of the reason we do it is, I do wish that I had some of those answers to the questions instead of having to, scrape my knuckles and get up and brush myself off so many times. But it's just trying to help people not have to do it as much. But like you, because what I loved about looking you up was your about page. If you haven't looked at it, read it. It's awesome. Because it really is true. It's like, hey, look, I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
This is how it is. And that experience brings a lot of that. Mm-hmm. But your personality too, which I love, man. So thanks for sharing that one.
Well, yeah. And that's one of the things we teach at Blog and VideoCon is how to write, a very interesting about me page, because that is one of the best compliments I get. And it is one of the things that was one of the first things I check out on people's websites is their about me page. I mean, do you do that now? I mean, as a coach, all right, you probably look at your clients and go, hey, let the people know about you.
Yeah, I haven't paid as much attention to it, and being honest, until I read yours, and I'm like, oh, this is an opportunity. It's not just something, because in my experience, the conversation around about pages was, they're not that important. Nobody reads them. But then I look at it and I go, well, I read them. And then I read yours and I'm like, oh my God, this is a valuable piece of real estate that we're not taking advantage of in a lot of cases. And I'm one of them.
Well, I mean, it's the number 2 most visited page on my website. They visit the homepage, sales page, whatever. The next step almost always is the about me page. I firmly always believe that, and it's something I press my clients to get something on there. Get something on there. And somebody's like, well, I'm not going to be as perfect as yours. My first one wasn't that perfect either. My first one, you would have ran when you've seen it,
That's right. Yeah.
just put something on there, It's like, but it is. I found it was a very visited site, very visited part of the website. And I made it inclusive because, like you said, I mean, it's just great to hear from you. It's like, oh man, well, I kind of got a gist of your personality by reading it, you know? But in a way, it's a sales page. It's trying to get you to go do something, which is what all of us coaches are trying to do, right? I mean, you're trying to do it too. I want you to take action, dude.
Yeah, no, and you know, it's a really great point there, where you say on your about page about, you know, hey, look, I'm going to be asking you to buy something. It's the whole reason I'm doing this, right? It's like, why are we on this show today? We're going to become friends. But that wasn't the initial intention of it. It's to kind of put ourselves out there and let people get a taste of who we are. And that makes so much sense, especially in coaching. After I thought about it and I read it, and it's like, my God, if I were looking for a coach and the sales part of it, the front page or the home page got my attention, I would go in and check out, you know, what's this guy have to say about himself? Or as you put it, which most people did, is like, let me tell you about myself, but act like I'm not the one telling it. Right?
Well, I've always loved this. All right. I know you're old enough to remember, but many of our young listeners are not. Do you remember the 1996 presidential thing here in America with Bob Dole and Bill Clinton? Bob Dole made fun of himself every freaking step of the way. And I was like, man, I want to be like Bob Dole. I want to not care, just make fun of myself. Bob Dole doesn't do that, you know?
Right. It's liberation, man. It's freedom when you know yourself well enough that we can take a look back and point at our flaws and all the things that are kind of funny to everybody else and us too. I mean, it is freeing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like that year of that commercial that Bob Dole did a Super Bowl commercial after losing the presidential election, and his Super Bowl commercial was for Visa. I don't know if you remember this or not.
I don't remember it fully, but
yeah. The whole town's holding a parade for him because he's coming back home. All right, and he's in a diner having a cup of coffee afterwards, and the waitress says, you know what I mean? Bob, that'll be $1.50. He's like, do you take a check? Sure, Bob, got ID? And he looks at the camera and goes, I just can't win.
What a great play on marketing strategy there, man. Big time.
I have always wanted Jacob to do, and I still have yet to come up with the way to do this program. I have one that's named, but I want to do it in a sarcastic way. And I have a sarcastic brand I've never built, but it's all around the idea. It's like, I like to be that funny, sarcastic, make fun of myself type person to get people to think about self-improvement. Mm-hmm. And I've always wanted to play off that. I mean, I have a brand that I've never built called Bartender Life Coach. You know what I mean? The answer, and I've tried to come up with a dumb tagline, make a show about it, just basically to make fun of and go, you guys realize how easy self-improvement is if you just get started. Do you ever get that desire to go do something like that to play with your audience?
Not only desire, but I do it a lot when I'm coaching. I point out, it's not all about like, look at me, I'm on the beach and I do 7 figures and I do this. It's not about that for me. It's about, this is, how we are in business is how we are in life. And if we can't make fun of ourselves and with our mistakes or anything else, we should do that. We get too rigid. So for me, pointing out the flaws and making fun of things that I've done, not only is something I do, but my family makes sure I remember it too. That's when we get together.
Yeah. Or I did one time, I think as a joke, is Tim's zero plan to failure, zero point plan to failure. Do nothing. You succeeded.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Instant success. Yeah.
Instant success. You finally succeeded at something. Yeah, you knew we were going to have some fun today, huh?
Absolutely. Yeah, we said that in the beginning. And I told Tim I was wearing this shirt in his honor because he's an old rock and roller in my view.
Yeah. I actually went and got a haircut last night. My hairstylist is like, you know what I mean? Wow, you're kind of that short. And I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of done with that. I'm like, she said, what do you want it to look like? You'll love this. All right. For years, I've had this long Tom Petty looking hair. I took a picture out of Eddie Van Halen like months before he died. I said, make me look like that. Right? I'm still chasing rock and rollers. I just don't want to chase him into an early death. That's all.
Yeah. Amen on that one. Yeah. I was with you too, man. I had hair almost to my waistline at one point. Wow. And yeah, it was the old era where, Peace and Mr. Natural were shirts are on the back of my jean jacket.
Yeah. Do you have any roots or anything in life? Like, I really didn't have roots into it, other than I did a promotionals. I worked some promotionals for a radio station in Philadelphia when I was there, but I really have no connection to the music industry. I can't play an instrument. I just loved it, But I mean, do you have any connections to music, or what's the connections in your past that you're using to your current coaching program?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, which is 45 miles from Detroit. So Motown influence was huge. Mm-hmm. I coach now. One of my clients is from Vancouver, but he's ran a music studio. Brian Adams, when he was starting out, was someone he used to drive home all the time. And now he helps promote, B or C level entry bands to get more exposure and stuff. So music for me has been like a foundation piece, a keystone for connection, for relationship. But I also, this side. I'm looking at the picture, but I play guitar, and I've always written poetry and write a few songs worthy of singing in front of groups or, a few people. But yeah, music for me has been huge, profound in my life.
And like I said, I really didn't have any connections. Like, my coach, mentor was Rockstar marketing guy, Craig Duswalt was my coach and mentor. He had a direct line to it. And when I got to know Craig, I realized, man, I really don't have a direct line. I need to work something on my past about what I am and who I, do. But I love music. Doesn't mean it wasn't a great foundation to get me going. And in the beginning, we found for us, when I started with a blog, about a year and a half in is where we found that niche of using music. And it was, I wrote a blog post about a song that I enjoyed in the 1980s called Jukebox Hero. Mm-hmm. And like my blog, like, this is a sign to do what your audience wants you to do. The day before I wrote a blog post that 35 people read it when it first came up. The day I put the blog post up, Jukebox Hero, 7,700 people showed up. Wow. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's kind of a sign from your audience. Maybe this is the direction you should go.
Amen on that.
Let me ask you this. How often, Jacob, have you had to you tell your clients, okay, see this aha moment right here? This is where you need to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a lot of it, thinking about music, relating it to business, in order to do it, you have to have a lot of trust and faith. Mm-hmm. And we don't always know exactly what's going to work. You didn't know that blog post was going to work. You just trusted that this was a good idea, and you did it.
Yeah.
And it is about having that faith and trust in ourselves without having to make it work, without having to know exactly how it's going to work. That faith and trust flows in everything. But in business, it's a really huge lesson in learning in self-belief, self-trust, having faith, and not having to have every answer,
Now, I mean, before you were in coaching, were you in other businesses or something? What led you to the path of being a coach and business leader?
Failure. So
wait a minute, you're not one of those guys that was, well, I can't do it, so I'll teach. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. My past life, I was a king, and nothing like that. It was I sold for corporations. Didn't like the corporate world. Started my own business. Had meteoric success. Mm-hmm. And then achieved what my initial goal was, and then learned the value of a system by selling $1 million company for about $85,000 because I didn't have the system. And then I got into real estate, and then 2008 just magnified everything that I wasn't doing. It wasn't because of 2008 that the failure came. It just magnified all the stuff that I was, hoping would fix itself. And in 2009, I was in bankruptcy court, losing everything I had ever worked for.
Wow.
So prior to that, I was working with John Gray, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and we did a lot of work together. And I was a volunteer, did some work, attempted some businesses together, and we would take walks. And he'd say, "You should be a coach." And I'm like, "What's a coach?" He goes, "Man, you'd be great. You got all this information. You're really easy to talk to. You got a calming personality. People would attract it to you. You should be a coach." And so that conversation kind of led to that. And then the failure gave me the opportunity. It's like, what do I do now? So I could either sit back and drink $2 Chuck and wallow in, misery, or I could get up and do something about it. And that's really the catalyst that got me started. And here I am. It's been 13 years. I've got to coach a lot of people. I did group coaching for 7 years. I coached about 3,800 people in groups. I've coached a couple hundred people one-on-one, and I get up every single day. Purpose found me, and I found it.
Wow.
Doing it. Yeah.
I find it unique. All right. It's kind of like, you connected with a mentor, but like, you and I have similar paths. 2004, I sold $1 million business, although I probably sold mine for a little bit more than you sold yours for. But 9 months later, I was bankrupt and out of money. And literally, because I put in a do not compete clause and had to change industries that I've been in the same industry for years. And I remember it was a conversation sitting across the table from Zig Ziglar, and Zig said, "Tim, you should be a speaker and a coach." And I went, "Zig, coach? You mean like the football team at church? What?" I didn't understand it. I really didn't. And then he explained to me. He said, "Tim, I was in car wash business." He says, "Tim, all those car wash guys that you're giving advice to and trying to help them, better their business." He says, "That's called coaching. People pay for that." I'm like, "They do?"
Right?
I could have been making money doing that the whole time. Then wait a minute, yeah. But then the real aha bulb hit was, crap. If I didn't sign a do not compete, I could be coaching those people and charging for it, but I do not compete. I couldn't coach in the area I knew. That's it. That was why I ended up bankrupt. Again, mistake. All right. But I learned hard from that. And at the time I was all right after the bankruptcy that I survived working part-time at Starbucks for 5 years.
Yeah. I went back and sold, I sold walk-in bathtubs. I sold artificial grass during the drought when I first got to California, and I had to go back and work, and it was emotionally painful. But we do what we do. And my last job, I was doing really well in a sales job. It was in-home sales. And instead of getting 3 or 4 leads a day, and I was like the top first or second, every week, I started getting one, and it would take me from San Francisco to Monterey for one call, which is 3.5 hours and 5 traffic jams. And, I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said, "I'm not dumb enough to let you go. So I'm going to give you the tough leads nobody wants to go to, because I know you'll sell most of them, but you're not supposed to be doing this. You need to go do your thing."
Yeah.
And it still took me another 6 weeks to finally stubborn out, and surrender to it. And I haven't been back since. Yeah. So my old boss, who's still a friend, gave me a gift.
Yeah. Isn't it funny though how many times some of our old bosses really kind of knew that, dude, you don't belong here. You need to move on. All right. I've had that happen several times. And I've worked for other people, so many jobs, but never long-term, because every boss was like, "Tim, you don't belong here." One boss kept me for 2.5 years because he was like, I know you don't belong here. I know you don't like the job, but you do a damn good job. And I don't want to get rid of you. But when it came down to it, the conversation with him was, I remember sitting, his name was Dan. And I sat down with him. I said, "Dan, I hate working here." And he said, "I know that. Now that you've admitted it, will you help me train somebody to replace you?" That was literally his. And like all the time we're sitting here lost, and like we talk about dumb things we did when we were younger. Well, I'm lost going, well, I got to hang on because he needs me to hang on. And the whole time he was like, "No, help me replace you." And I got to tell you how many times over the years before Dan passed was I reached out to him, "Dan, I need help with." "Sure, Tim. Come on over to my office," and he'd help me.
Yeah.
And most of us are scared to go, boss, I don't like what I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's self leadership as well, right? A sign of strength is being able to be vulnerable and asking for help. It's
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
sign of weakness.
Yeah.
You know.
It's funny how we look at it as a sign of weakness, but really it isn't. It's a sign of strength.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's liberation because when I can clean out my closet, there's nothing left to hide.
Yeah.
And for me, that's part of maturity, getting a little bit older and understanding myself to a level where what you say doesn't matter to me. We use the mindset thing. I think it's way overrated, even though I have it in my title. I think if you focus on the words, because see, the words make an impact. Words are what formulate thoughts or conversation, and what we say, whether it's in thought or in words, creates what shows up. I've proven this over and over. I help people get tremendous success, and when we look back, I'll say, hey, what's the biggest difference? It's been a year and you've gone from here to here. Mm-hmm. What's the biggest difference? You're not doing Herculean changes, and it's usually the way you believe and think.
Mm-hmm. I want to say hi to our live watcher here, Robert Brooker. Robert's one of our faithful watchers of the show. Thanks for tuning in today, Robert. And he comments the whole way through the show, and I appreciate you, Robert, for everything you do and being part of our show today. So go check it, Robert. Go check out Jacob.
Thanks for being here too. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So over the years, though, you said you had to learn from failure. Mm-hmm. How many times have you gotten fired from a job over the years?
Let's see.
That's a tough question, but
I'm thinking 1, 2, 2.5. And the reason I say half is because I was about out the door. My first business, mm-hmm. The year before I won President's Club, which is this really high achievement. They take you on these extravagant trips. And then they put me with this manager it was like oil and water. We just didn't connect. And instead of getting fired, I took a 2-week vacation. I started my business, and I literally got so busy, Tim, that I put a bunch of advertising out. I called him and I said, hey, I hate to do this to you, but I can't come back. I started a business. I'm too busy. Can you either mail me my stuff or put it out in the hallway? And F you, man, you're never going to work in this industry again. And the only downside to this whole thing was I brought my wife to work into that same office. It was selling Yellow Page advertising at the time, but she had to deal with the turbulence for a couple of months, and then they got over it.
Yeah, I actually had a boss it was the boss after I sold my company let me go, and then 6 months later we ran into each other and had coffee together, right? Like we were having to run into each other at a mall, and I said, let's go have a cup of coffee. So sure. So we sat down, a cup of coffee. And I had to tell him, I said, I really got to thank you, man. I needed that. I needed to be pushed out. I didn't belong there. And he goes, I know, your head wasn't in it. You know what I mean? And we went on to talk about, he went on to then go say, well, this is what you should be doing. You don't belong doing what we're doing there because your head's not in it. This is what you need to go do. And I'm like, wow. Again, and there was moments, and had I been vulnerable to him 6 months earlier, I could have been 6 months jump on what I could have been doing. But it was a great advice because it was a boss who read me. But you know what I mean? And he had let me go. And it's funny because it was a friend of mine who owned the corporation. It was my supervisor that had to let me go when my friend wasn't in town.
Yeah, it's not easy. I hired a couple of friends and acquaintances, and I had to fire both of them. And it wasn't easy. Yeah, it was very tough. But I'd do it again for sure.
Yeah, I had a friend that I was good friends with at the one company I ran for someone else, and I had to let him go, and I made my boss do it. I said, my boss, I was like, listen, I can't. This is somebody who's a friend, and till this day I haven't talked to him since. He literally was pissed at me, and but he wasn't working out. He was costing me money as an employee running a department, and I'm like, you can't let friendship get in the way of business.
Nope,
and I'm sure you teach that in your coaching as well for business.
Well, you can't get attached to any part of it, to another person or to a thing, because, just because I bought the $100 a month program doesn't mean it helps me.
Yeah.
It just means that in the moment it seemed right, and maybe it's not, so it's about trust and faith, but it's also about having to face those moments in time. A little side note on that is one of the reasons that I'm a certified firewalk instructor. So I take people through firewalks and walking on glass and breaking bricks. And part of the reason I did it was because it made me face things like firing with a whole different perspective, and how you deal with problems can relate to all of these experiences, so firing is never fun, even when it's justified.
It's funny though that you say that, how you learned from it. By being an instructor, you learned from it. And I have found over the years that my education comes from very, very, my education, the things that I had to do or whatever to learn something came from the most weirdest places on the planet. Like, I took a class to learn something and I didn't learn something. But then I go and have to teach something and I learn something. It's weird. All right. How many times as a coach has that happened to you?
Oh, all the time. And the client teaches you sometimes.
Yeah, always. My clients are always teaching me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, the craziest analogy I can use is I had a client from Australia. He used the F word about every third word. And I kept getting this thought. And I said, I got to share my intuition with you. His name was Charles. And I said, it just says, go get milk. I said, I have no idea what it means, but I'm telling you, go get milk. And he goes, I don't even effing drink milk. And, he went off on this thing. He ended up doing it the next day. In the line, he's mumbling to himself. A guy talks to him. He talks to him. He says, oh, what do you guys do? It took about 4 months to solidify it, but he got a proposal for a $2 million deal. So you trust your intuition as a coach, but also as an entrepreneur. You just never know where the lesson's going to come. And for me, that lesson was, when you get that thought, trust it and put it out there. It doesn't have to be right, but a lot of times it is.
I thought when you said the F word, you're going to say free.
Right. Yeah. I'll keep it clean.
I had this whole thing in my Simply Success program that says, number one lesson I learned over the years is there ain't no free lunch.
Right. That's right. Although speaking of it, I saw it, and you can go check out Tim's LinkedIn page, because 3 years ago you had one heck of a post.
I don't even remember. Here's the truth about my LinkedIn page, Jacob. Truthfully, I know very little of what I put on my LinkedIn page. My page was created by Lori Ruff. I don't know if you know Lori Ruff in the industry. She was known as the LinkedIn diva for years, and she used to be, 2008 to 2015. She was like the number one female trainer on LinkedIn in the country. Oh. And I have personal friends with her, and she just happened to be staying at my house for something. And I said, she said, "You're not on LinkedIn?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." So she took my computer, she grabs my laptop, goes down, sits on the table, and creates this whole LinkedIn page for me. And 90% of it's still everything she created. Hardly any of it. It's like every now and then I post an article on there that's not related. It's not me. But anyway, I still don't know what's on my LinkedIn page, because I don't know how to use LinkedIn. It's just not a place that I've gotten. It's not that it's a bad network. It's just not been a great place for me to get clients from.
Right.
However, the places I do get clients from, some of the professional people couldn't. So it's all about finding that niche. Let me go and flip that on you. All right. What are the places you're finding clients? Is it LinkedIn? Is it, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter? What is it?
Yeah, for me, it's LinkedIn's my main social media outlet to market. But it's all about connecting. And I think this applies to any social media. You have to find where your clients are active, number one. And then you have to engage offline. So I put out valuable posts. Excuse me 1 second. I put out valuable posts that inform, that educate, that entertain, to keep engagement, connection. But it's all the strategies really about the offline contacts, because in any business, if we're not having conversations, we don't have sales. And if we don't have sales, we're not in business. So for me, it's about not how can I sell you? How can I initiate a conversation to find out about you? Yeah. Selling for me is, hey, Tim, after this conversation, if we still feel it's a good fit, let's set up another one, and then we'll figure out how we can work together.
It's kind of like, I don't know if you know Judy was her name Hoberman?
Judy Hoberman. I know her.
Yeah, Judy's got this whole thing, you know what I mean? What's the next lead? Is you always ask the next question until the next question is, are you ready to take the next step? Like it's
Yeah.
always ask another question. And I love
Yeah.
how you actually put that. Yeah.
Well, I took it to heart, but it didn't work for me. She has a company called Selling in a Skirt, and I just got laughed at. Yeah. You know, it's like, yeah, drum roll, please.
It's like the guy who said, you know what I mean? Get naked and be truthful.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, I tried that. All right. They kicked me out of Kroger, man. They don't let me go shopping there anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
The sign said wear a mask. It didn't say I had to wear clothes too.
Yeah, that's right.
We can go down a bad path with that one. I'm just saying.
In a half a second.
So, Jacob, some of the most interesting things I've learned over the years. Number one, you mentioned earlier about mindset. I remember being on a podcast. Dean Cain was interviewing me, and he asked me about what a mindset. And I said, mindset, that's a woo-woo word to me. And he went, what? I'm like, to me, mindset was, as my dad saying, just get up and do it, kid. You know, it wasn't getting in the right mindset. It was, you want to eat? Do the work.
That's.
I don't know I don't know how you were raised. All right. The family you were raised in. I'm really close to my mom. She actually moved down here to stay next to me in her retirement. But it's weird how some of us are raised and we've got to go, all these things to get our mindset right. And I'm like, dude, my mindset was, okay, you're hungry, dude. Go to work.
That was mine as well. You know, it was really, they earned everything that they got. They did the best. They loved the best that they could. And, I was one of the first in my family to graduate from high school, let alone, college. What do you mean? Go work at the factory, because it's just the area that I grew up in. And I just wasn't that person, and it took a while for my stepdad to understand, I got you this job. Why don't you want it? You could make $12 an hour in 1977.
Yeah. That was a lot of money back then, but it wasn't your dream. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went and delivered wine for $3 an hour and partied my brains out. Yeah. So until I figured out the next step, which was sales for me. Yeah.
For me, it was, I watched my dad being laid off. So, I literally quit thinking on school. I just was like, what do I got to do to get out of here? That's all I cared about. What do I have to do to get out of here? I didn't care. I was a DNF student. I barely got through. I did whatever I had to do to pass. That's all I cared about in school. And my parents were worried, and they had me tested in the late 70s and said, basically the guy who did the testing basically said, Tim's going to have a job with a trade. Just, get him a good trade, name on his shirt, just be happy with what life gives him. That's the best he's going to do. Not realizing that really the main reason why I was there was, and I didn't realize it until many, many years later that I was in that state, that mindset, because I watched my dad get laid off. And I'm like, that crap don't work, man. I don't care what you're trying to tell me. Get a good trade and get a good job. That don't work. He didn't, and that's where I went to. Now, I never went to college. My younger brother, Kenny, was the first in our family to go to college and the first to get a master's degree. And I'm very proud of my brother, but my brother went through this whole thing. He didn't even graduate high school. He left. He's like, screw this, doesn't work. He left high school and got a job and eventually went back to college. So often I think we go back and look at our worlds and go, well, we were told this because that's the environment our parents, our family, or whoever grew up in, not with, dude, what do you want to do with this world? Go do it. You know what I mean? And, and now we're telling our kids, yeah, you can be president. You could be an actor. You can be an actress. Just go do it. I remember telling my daughter, you want to go to Hollywood? Go. And she didn't. She eventually curled back, went back to home and lived by her mom and everything. But it's interesting that we weren't told that. We were sometimes given a job as opposed to go chase the dream.
Yeah. Well, and, relating it to like your coaching in my business as well, it's like you can't create that desire. But I think one of the things that we do to help a lot is keep people at it when they would check out, because we see all the pictures of, and I said it earlier, here I am in front of my mansion and I vacation, 7.5 days a week. And you can make 7 figures too. And, we see that, but we don't see all the work that goes into doing it. And I think that's where people start checking out, is when they don't get it fast enough, or they realize, whoa, this is a lot harder than I thought. And I think this is why coaching has gotten so big. But also mindset is so important. And like you said, we learn a lot more usually from our mistakes or where we mess up than we do from our successes.
Well,
sure.
what's the old college football analogy where the tiny little quarterback, all right, stumbles and drops the ball, and the big monster, tackle guy grabs the ball and runs it down towards, and the little tiny quarterback runs him down and tackles him.
Yeah.
and the opposing coach goes, how the heck did your quarterback do that? That is like my number one runner, my number biggest guy that nobody can tackle. How did he do it? He says, your guy was running for 7 points. My guy was running for his life.
That's right. Yeah. No. And we have to find that meaning in what it matters, or we do check out. But if we can connect to the meaning of why we're doing it beyond our family, more to like, why is it meaningful for me to do this beyond my family? That's, for me, has been a big shift in not only keeping me at it, but doing whatever I could to become better and to be better at it.
So, I always like to ask this question, Jacob, of all my people. When I was like 21 years old, I worked at a gas station part-time up in Massachusetts. And I had a part-time job, and the guy just basically gave me a piece of advice to run my job, which turned out to be a form of life advice that I've carried to this day. And basically, in a nutshell, he was trying to tell me, pretend like you own the business, which taught me to take ownership of everything I do in my life. Were you given a piece of advice like that was maybe meant to advice to get through the steps, but you turned it into now it's life advice because you direct everything in your life to it, through it?
I think for me, what comes to mind for me is, that treating people like you would like to be treated. And I take that to a point where, if somebody spends money with me, what is the feeling that they would like to get from this? What is the experience and what is the result? And doing everything that I can, knowing that I can't control all of it, but I can provide a lot of help to get people there. But I think it's just making sure that I'm providing the value that I would expect to get back.
Cool. It's almost like, I don't even know Nancy Matthews. Nancy Matthews is, has her one philosophy: treat everybody like they are the one person you're looking to meet. And I always have loved that. And I always, when I see Nancy and I have her on camera, I make her explain it, not me. She's
there you go.
So much better at it. Anyway. I always ask that it's always a very interesting thing to ask, that question, because so many people have, and usually it's something weird that became a life advice that they've carried on. And it wasn't really, when it was said to them, but really wasn't meant as life advice. It was like, let me just carry you through this next hour of the day with this little bit of wisdom. And I find a lot of people have done that as well. What advice or what is a piece of advice or a encouragement that you've given to someone that they are always looking back and going, man, because Jacob told me this, I'm blank, fill in the blank. Yeah.
Great question. A lot of it is because Jacob shares that I don't have to know everything. We have to have a desire. We have to know what we're going to do. And we have to be willing to take a step. We don't have to know the next step.
Yeah.
That would be my, one thing that if I say this often to my clients, it's, you don't have to know the next step. Finding the joy in the action that you're taking is one of the most important things to take with you, because we don't always get the result that we think or we believe or we hope or anticipate. But if we find the joy in that step, the fact that I'm just actually doing this, will show up for the next one. We don't get to determine exactly when it's going to show up always, but if we stay in it, we will get the result. Sometimes it's a long time away. Cool.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show today. All right. And actually having fun with me on camera. It's been cool getting to know you on camera. But Jacob, what is the one website that people can reach out to you, connect with you, and take the next step if they want to work with you?
Yeah, it's an easy one. It's my name, jacobroig.com.
No, Last name Roig is how you spell it, right? Yeah.
That's correct. Yep.
Cool.
Just like
Those
you
people
see
on
the
audio,
screen.
yeah, make sure they get it. So, Jacob, I mean, yeah, as I said, it's been fun having you on today. But before we go, I have a little game called This or That.
Uh-oh. I'm
9
game.
questions I have specifically wrote for Jacob today.
Sounds
You
good.
ready to play?
Yes.
All right. My first one, I ask this one to everybody. It's an easy one. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek.
Star Trek. Are you like a Picard or Kirk person?
Spock.
Spock. The original Spock, not the one on the new movies.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, you can do it. I can't do it. I'm not coordinated enough to do it. So I'm working on it though. My next one here is kind of something, in the coaching world, most people don't know this about many coaches, but would you prefer a text or a phone call?
Text.
Text. Same way. To me, it's text. I can't tell. I bet you I've only had 5 phone calls in the past, like two months. I literally text and get to know people as a Zoom call. Now, I do a Zoom call to have it. All right. I don't give anybody who's not my client my phone number. They all have my Zoom. They have to have a Zoom meeting with me first. So, yeah. But text me before you call me. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. How about going on vacation? Are you a guy who goes to the hotels or you go camping?
Well, I would go to the hotels, or the camping, but my wife's a hotel person, so hotels.
Okay, so we're a flip. I'm a hotel person. My wife's a camping person. Somehow or another, and and my coach the same way. He would love to go get an RV. She's like, nope, I'm staying in a 5-star hotel. His wife. I'm like, yep, it's mismatch. Yeah. Today here, the next question here is based on what today is, but it's a hamburger or taco. Which do you prefer?
Taco.
Yeah. Today's National Hamburger Day. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah. I know that. I'm getting hamburger for dinner. Trust me, I'm a hamburger guy. And I live in Texas where they make good tacos. Yeah.
And
how about beer or wine?
Wine.
Wine?
Yeah. I'm
considering
30 miles from Napa. Oh. Yeah. Wine.
Wait a minute. How many memberships do you have in Napa?
I don't have any. My daughter knows someone who works at 4 different wineries, and I have some of the best Cabernets you can get for the price that he gets it for. So right now in my closet, if you come over, Tim, which you're welcome to at any time if you're ever here, I'll have at least 100 bottles on hand.
Wow. We've got a rack in here. We've got memberships at like 7 different wineries between there and around the country here in Texas and stuff like that. And I'll bet you my rack can fit 125. I'll bet you I got 85 on there right now.
You like Cabernet?
I like Cabs, Pinot Noir, the reds. That's my favorite reds. Here in Texas, Texas has got like a sweet palate to some of their wineries. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a combination, like half sweet, half tart. You know what I mean? Half dry. It's called Sweet Justice from a winery here in Texas called. I can't even think of the name of the winery. My mind just went blank. But anyway, it's one of those wines that I don't like a lot of sweet. Yeah. But the best wines that I've ever found are uniquely, not in Napa, not in Texas, New Mexico.
I'll be driving.
There's a winery in New Mexico that actually has a Hatch chili wine.
Wow, I'm gonna have to try that because I like Hatch chilies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You get it. You're hooked on it. I'm just saying. We stopped there one time. We've been stopping at that winery every time we go by it on I-10. We stop. If we're in the car, at least 2 cases are coming home with us.
Yeah, I'll be driving by there in about 2 weeks, man. I'm going to check that out. I'll send you a note.
Yeah. I'll get you connected with it. There's good people on there. So, let me move on to some very, very controversial questions. Boston Red Sox or New York Yankees?
I got to go Boston Red Sox, man. I lived in Boston for 6 years.
Yeah.
Love the Sox.
Yeah.
Carl Yastrzemski hit his last home run.
I've lived up there too. I've never been to the Red Sox ballpark. My wife, finishing up today, her company is putting in a store at Boston Children's Hospital. And like one of the things, they were up there for 2 weeks. She's like, well, we're talking as a company, maybe going out to a Red Sox games. I'm like, do it. I'm like, I'm not a Red Sox fan. I'm not a baseball fan, but I'm like, do it. Do you not realize that that's like an experience to go to?
Oh, it is.
And I've never been there. All right. I know where it is. I've walked by it, being downtown Boston when I was there in the 80s, but I've never been to a game there. And there's certain places in this country that you want to go to get an experience, and that's one of them.
That is one of them for sure.
Yeah. How about this one? Neil Young or Leonard Skinner?
Ooh.
Because you know those two are fighting, right?
Oh yeah. I got to go with Neil. I've been a fan of his, and I play his music on guitar. So
I kind of figured you were a Neil out of those two. I was like, man, I'm going to throw this one out. You see,
Yeah, Neil Young.
Cool. The next one here, the toilet paper. Does it go over it on the roll at your house or under?
Under.
Under. Okay. That
easier
is the most
for me to rip.
Question.
Yeah, easier for me to rip.
I had this girl Cammie on from New Hampshire last year, and Cammie was a single girl, and she's like, "Hey, I'm single, and I'm dating a guy, and if I go to his house 3 times after, and then that toilet paper is not over, she's an over, so I have to switch from under to over. I break up with him. This relationship's going."
Oh man.
But the best thing I have on that question is these people who come on my show and they're rainbows and unicorns and love and let's all get along, and you bring that question up and fangs come out.
Yeah, right.
Like, what happened to that? Let's all get along there, huh?
Right. That's right.
My last one, and it's always good to get in a conversation with a guy over this one. Boxers or briefs?
Been a briefs guy, man, my whole life.
They have this new thing called boxer briefs. All right. I'm telling you, dude, they're the best. You got to try them.
I have hairy legs, man. Don't like stuff tight around my legs. Even the socks. I buy the socks for people with diabetes just because I don't like constriction.
Yeah. It's funny how things have changed. All right. Over the years of what we think is comfortable or what we don't think is comfortable. And undergarments, like clothing, like T-shirts. I used to wear those, what they called wife beaters.
Yeah,
I used to think they were comfortable. Now I'm like, no, I'll wear a T-shirt underneath my shirt if I'm cold. Yeah. But, and socks. The other thing is I got some of these socks that are those copper compression ones because I was starting to get aches and pains, and it took away the aches and pains. I just have to wear them 2 days a week, and oh my God, I took them away. And I'm like shocked at how much clothing mattered. And never thought about all these things that we always over the years look forward. I'm just curious. You're kind of same age as me. When you were younger and you first became an adult, was your Christmas request to your grandma every year, yeah, just give me socks and underwear?
No. Usually it was like, no, I don't, I wasn't a good receiver at that time. So I'd say, yeah, I don't really need anything. A card's good. Realizing I was taking joy away from people giving me stuff, and I've changed that since then.
Yeah. No, my grandmother every year, my grandmother was like, "What do you want for Christmas?" I'm like, "Man, just get me socks and underwear. I'm good." And it's like I never had to buy them because Grandma always bought them for me every year. The basic necessities I never had to buy. I loved it. Yeah.
I still got the card in my 20s. The card with $2 in it, like I did when I was 5. Yeah.
And it's funny, how we look at life and sometimes you get to pay back. My Uncle Mike, my mom's youngest brother for years, when I was younger, every year sent me a Christmas with like a $5 bill into it. And then it was, as it got up in age, it was things for investment, right? He was just always did that. And I know he's a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And I'm at an event one night where a guy's doing this auction charity thing, and these Pittsburgh Steelers, memorabilia. So I just texted my uncle. So which one do you prefer, this one or this one? And I think he kind of figured it out. But I bid on it. I don't remember what I paid. Probably $200, $300, whatever. But I paid for it. And then I took it to my uncle that year and gave it to him at Thanksgiving. He's like, "Why'd you do this?" I said, "You remember all those years of you sending me the $5 bill? This is a return on your investment.
Wow,
I can afford this. And I don't need it. So now it's my turn to pay you back." And it's funny how you say, give it a gift. Sometimes it's a gift that you got to give. And I said, no, you have to take this because I didn't get it for me. I don't need this. I got it for you.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah. So
shares a lot about you, my friend.
Yeah. Jacob, I've enjoyed having you on the show. One more time, tell everybody your website so that they can connect with you.
Yep, it's Jacob Roig, ROIG.com, jacobroig.com. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Jacob, for being on the show. I've appreciated getting to know you, man. You've been a great guest.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. To you, the listeners, I want to thank you. I know, a shout out to Robert. All right, very faithful listener of ours. You've been here today and seen a lot of comments. If you're watching the show, all right, you leave the comments. I'll be giving a shout out to you. To anybody else, please do me a favor. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get that up there, and we appreciate your help. It's youtube.com/Tim Gillette. In the meantime, I'll be back with another guest real soon here in the Tim Gillette Show. In the meantime, it's Memorial Day weekend. Have a great weekend, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.